All right, everyone, we get to welcome a truly extraordinarily badass guest. And he has been at Scrum Masters of the Universe many times, more than I can count probably to present. So we're so excited to welcome him back today. Bob Galen has been in the Agile game since the late 90s, so long before some of us, myself included, knew what Agile even was. He's based in Cary, North Carolina. Bob's been leading companies and teams toward more effective, pragmatic, agile practices. So what else did I want to think about Bob? He writes incredible blogs. He's hosting podcasts. We're gonna put some of these links in the chat for you. And he is, again, as I want to mention, why we said badass, he is the author of he's only the author of 4 books actually, but my favorite is his latest, Extraordinarily Badass Agile Coaching. I mean, because who doesn't want to be a little more badass at what we do, right? All right, let's give a warm welcome to Bob. We thank you for being here. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Tatiana. You can hear me. Let me share my screen. Um, this is a new talk for me, everyone, because it's really, I'm, I'm talking about just some handouts and things, so some canvases, and I'm sharing those. Now, you should all be able to access a Dropbox zip file. Please download it. You can download the files I'm going to walk through. So in case the print is too small, then you can blow it up on your on your desktop. So I wanted to talk about, and this complements a talk I did for Scrum Masters of the Universe a few months ago. This is a part 2. I talked about value. So the talk is really about for coaches, for change artists, for Scrum Masters, how do we do a better job of valuing, communicating our value, validating our value, confirming our value. And the first talk was a presentation around that. And I alluded to having some canvases, and I think I shared some, but I don't know if people picked them up. And this time I wanted to share that and go through the canvases. And I want to have a nod to Chris Stone because he inspired me. I had done the canvases, but then Chris Stone shared one on LinkedIn, and I would recommend you look for it. And I originally wanted to do a pair with him, but he had some other stuff going on. So I'm going to cover it, but you should, after this, if you want to do some research, if you're intrigued, you want to look for Chris Stone's canvas as well. So my canvas, I created an Agile coaching values canvas. For me, a canvas is just an idea generator, something to drive your noodling, to drive your journaling, to drive your thinking about value. I am running. I just started a master class yesterday. I've been running these master classes on Agile coaching, and I was up on a soapbox yesterday talking about journaling and how important journaling. I think journaling is to your growth as a coach, to your internal growth and your external growth. And this canvas can really complement your journaling, your reflection. I was trying to influence folks to think about becoming reflection artists and really to reflect often about how they're doing and how can they improve. So the first part, I have the canvas, and then I wrote this value mapping called an article where I do a little bit of a deep dive into each area of the canvas. So the first one is Ikigai. That's up here. Your value of purpose. For your canvas, what I recommend is that you take a look at your Ikigai. And Ikigai is a Japanese metaphor and I'm not expert in it. I don't speak Japanese. I'm not expert in it, but I think I got the point. It's a purpose. I think of it as a purpose compass. And for value, before you start trying to say I'm valuable, try to find your center. I think. What is your purpose? Why are you coaching? Why are you a scrum master? Why are you a coach? Are you in it for the money? Are you in it for the prestige? Are you in it for the day-to-day challenges? Or are you in it for something else? Are you in it for people? And I think you want to lean into an ikigai and get your directional awareness. So why are you doing what you do? What's your purpose? What gives you joy? It's really hard to be a scrum master or coach from my point of view if it doesn't give you joy. I mean, I'm not trying to suggest being in it for the money is bad, but the problem with just being in it for prestige and the money is what do you do when the going is tough? You don't have a good foundation. So I think doing what you love is a better foundation. So finding that ikigai. What are your short-term and long-term goals as a coach or a scrum master? Be goal-oriented. Be able to articulate them to yourself and to others. When the going gets tough, is your purpose resilient? That's one of the reasons I try to anchor and value on ikigai or purpose is I find it's useful to have, because that's my anchor when the going is tough. And how many find agile coaching, scrum mastery, the going is tough? I'm just looking for some hands. Anyone? Is it an easy job or hard job? Easy job. Everyone's saying easy. Okay. Well, it's not easy for me. It's incredibly challenging. So one of my foundations is why am I doing it? And for my self awareness and my self care, I center on that. And then what is the one personal coaching metric that matters most to you? One of the things for me is just connecting to people. Now I don't talk to this about my stakeholders very much, but the relationships I build with people, human beings, and the effect I have on human beings is one of my personal metrics as a coach. Am I making a difference to them? When someone reaches out to me 5 years after I met them and they said you made a difference, that I don't have a monetary valuation for that, but that is an incredible impact for me because that aligns with my ikigai. So in your coaching canvas, ikigai is an important area. Then there's some other areas here. I think in the beginning, your value. So at the in the beginning is establishing your value proposition with your coaching client or your whoever you're coaching. So I'll use the term client to refer to, if you're a scrum master, your team, or if you're an enterprise coach, your leaders or organizations, whatever. They're your coaching client. When you initially start coaching, that's the best time to establish what is coaching and what are you looking for me to do and to confirm your value, getting those agreements in the very beginning. How can I serve you? How can I deliver value to you? Not how can I make you agile, but more so what business objectives are we looking for? What team objectives are we looking for? So in the canvas, noodling around how am I doing establishing our agreements in the beginning around value. It doesn't have to be a contract, but it's these discussions. And then if things go off the rails, so the beginning, you can reestablish a beginning whenever you need to, from my point of view. Another element is staying balanced in your coaching. So tactical versus strategic. One of my favorite examples is a scrum master. Very often scrum masters coach downward to the team. Does that make sense to everyone? Very often, I mean, it's part of the job description. It's probably a huge part of the job description is I am a scrum master, therefore I coach the team. But what if the impediments of the team are outside the team? So I sometimes use this term tactical versus strategic and coaching. So at a scrum master level, are you coaching in 360? Are you coaching 100% at a team level? And are you missing systemic opportunities? And that could be the value. The value proposition impact to the business might not be the team. You might be looking at the team. That might be the easy stuff. The hard stuff, it might be the enterprise or the organization or the leadership coaching. But that's where the value is. That's where the perceived value in the organization. So the point is, do some thinking around: Am I balanced or am I imbalanced, and do I need to rebalance myself? Push versus pull. Are you pushing too much? And strategically, are you trying to engage pull? Does everyone know what I mean by push? Push is you coach. So if I work for Elizabeth Burgess and she said, darn it, Katiana is not cutting it. Bob, you need to coach Katiana. And I go into Katiana and say, hi, Katiana, I'm Bob, and I'm going to coach you. And you have one day to become surreally badass, right? Because I'm coaching you and etc. So I'm pushing my coaching expertise into Katiana. And even if I'm badass Bob Galen, she's going to be offended a little bit. She's like, I didn't ask for you, right? I didn't ask for this weird guy with a hat and a white beard to come in and to start coaching me. You're pushing it on me. And sometimes you have to push as a coach, particularly internal coaches, but are you balancing it with pull? I like to keep a metric in my journal about how many times are people asking me for help versus am I helping? Am I inflicting help on them? And what I'm trying to do is create a burn up chart where the requests are increasing over time. Am I affecting the organizational ecosystem so that I'm pushing less and I'm getting pulled more? And how am I showing up to the organization for that? So push versus pull is interesting. I think the point there is I think our value is amplified in pull. Does that resonate with everyone? I think push is really, because you're trying to make someone do something, and that's a really hard slog. That's like pushing soap up a rope is trying to make someone do something. So it's much. I think it's much more effective when you can flip it to pull, or at least balance that ratio. Another area is really spending some time. Are you partnering effectively? I wrote a blog post a while back. I said, never go it alone as a coach. Does that resonate with everyone? I mean, I don't think you should ever go it alone. Like I'm a coach, even if you're a lone coach coaching a scrum team, who are you partnering with? Are there any colleagues you can partner with? Are there managers you can partner with? Is there anyone? Is there coaches you can partner with? Other scrum masters? But it's almost lone wolf coaching is a really lonely space, and it's really hard to understand. Am I providing value? Am I seeing the landscape the right way? So try to create partnerships wherever you can. That's client partnerships, and it's really important to sort of part of that valuation in the beginning is to continue to build that relationship with your clients over time, whether it's a team or whether it's leaders or individuals. So what are you doing? And introduce yourself. Do they know your bio? Do they know have you talked to them about what coaching you like to do and what you don't like to do? Like I don't like facilitating. I know that may be some of you may find that offensive, but facilitation, that stance doesn't get me excited. I'm an okay facilitator, but coaching leaders, oh my God, I leap out of bed in the morning. Give me a leader. And I'm just like excited to coach enterprises and leaders because it's such a rich landscape. I like to poke the bear to some degree in my coaching, and it makes me smile occasionally. So understanding sort of aligning your partnerships with your strengths. I think there's the four dimensions from a coach point of view of coaching value. And a lot of coaches or scrum masters, they coach from behind. So think of this as a spatial relationship. Am I coaching from behind the team? Meaning I'm serving the team and I'm pushing them up, and that's fine. A lot of coaches coach from behind. A coaching stance is very much of a behind the team stance. But then there's other stances in the agile coaching growth wheel, like leading stance or advising stance. And I would say those might be coaching from the sides, or dare I say it, occasionally coaching from the front. Because I think depending on your context, you have to be seen. It's really hard for folks to understand your value if they don't see you. If you're like hunched down behind the team saying, "Well, the team speaks for itself, and I've done great things with this team, but I'm really hidden. I'm not. I don't. They don't even know your name. You want to, yes, serve your clients, but you also want your value to be evident. And I think you're spatial. So sometimes leading from the front or modeling having strong self mastery. Sometimes the right side is partnership and transforming. The left side to me is mentoring. Are you leaning into mentoring? And then behind is that coaching stance. I love this orientation to think about how much time am I spending in those spaces and where do my clients need me to spend time? Does that resonate with anyone? Meaning, where's your comfort zone versus where do your clients need you? How do they need you to show up? Very often as coaches, we stay in our comfort zone or a skill comfort zone. And if it aligns with the client's goals, that's fantastic. But what if it doesn't? What if I'm asking like lots of professional coaching questions and what they really want from me is advice? Anyone ever been in that situation where you're asking, I call it death by a thousand questions sometimes, where you're asking all these coaching questions and they're wonderful questions, but someone just needs advice and you can see their eyes rolling up in their head and they're like, God, could you just stop? Right? You're not meeting them there. and you may be sort of serving yourself. And then the final thing is terminology and storytelling, and being intentional about the terminology we're using. Nowadays, if anyone's in my classes, I talk about agile gobbledygook. I think we talk too much about agile stuff like Scrum and Kanban and WIP and scaling terminology. I literally am trying to say throw that stuff away. It's nice. I mean, use that terminology, but talk in terms of your customer. Like, what are their goals and objectives? What problems are they trying to solve? How can you partner with them? What are the business outcomes they're looking for? Last time I checked, very few clients are their OKRs or their business outcomes to delight their customers are related to being agile. Maybe a few of you are there. Agile's sort of a ways, a means to that end. It's not the end itself. So let's not use that language so much. And then, do you have coaching stories to tell? And are you collecting them along the way? And are you intentionally collecting your stories, failure stories, success stories, stories about different coaching stances, stories when you've made a mistake, etc., stories to share to modify. So the canvas is there. I think storytelling can communicate the value. And the story has to weave in the client that you're coaching, but also yourself. Don't leave you're a prime character in the story. You are delivering value through with a team, through a partnership. So how do you communicate that? So don't just tell those team stories. Oh, my team did fantastic. I'm so proud of them. I love them. Um, they blew velocity out of the water, et cetera. Look at the outcomes that they created. And if I'm a leader, I'm thinking to myself, well, and what did you do? If you were at the beach, then you're delivering no value, but you played a part in that. So weave you. Everyone write that down. Weave you into the value proposition. Weave you into your stories, not in an obnoxious way. It's not all about you, but it's not about you. You have to do that weaving. So the article on the right tries to provide guidance for the canvas. So that's one thing. Let me do a time check. I gotta hurry up here. I have one other thing I want to share, and then I'll open up for Q&A. And I think I alluded to this. Can everyone see that? Okay. This is finding your value in your stance. And when I say a competency, so my reference point here is the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel. It could be the Agile Coaching Competency Framework. I prefer the Growth Wheel, but whatever your coaching framework, your stance framework competencies are, I like to use them as I use the terminology stances. I'm adopting a stance. Uh, so your stance, and I'm coming to the conclusion that depending on your context, not all stances have equal value. That stances are context sensitive. So let me show you here. So I have this little chart, and I talk about two dimensions, and I'm not sure this is where this work will land, but it's where it is right now. I have high skin in the game and low skin in the game. Skin in the game for a coach is I am in the game with whoever I'm coaching. I'm directly partnering with them. There's that metaphor of I'm on the field with the team. Anyone ever hear that? I'm not on the sidelines. I'm partly on the field, and I'm working with folks. So skin in the game to me is that. Not 100% skin in the game. You're not a team member. There's a balancing act, but skin in the game is good. And then low partnering versus high partnering. So skin in the game and partnership are the two dimensions that I'm thinking to determine are valuable. And then I have all of the, if you look here, I have all of the competencies from the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel. So advising, Agile Lean coaching, facilitating, guiding learning, which is mentoring and teaching, leading, self-mastery, which is the hub of the wheel, um, serving products, serving teams, and then transforming organizational transformation, organizational development, and design. And so now this is my perspective using those dimensions and using those competencies. And this is just a game for me. So if I come back here, This is sort of finding value in your stance. Think about your context. Think about those two dimensions, and then think about what stances are providing the most value in my context for my client. So for me, I spend a lot of my time right here on enterprise level coaching of leaders, mostly executives and leaders. Everyone with me? So that's my context. So what are things that are probably they're not going to resonate? Coaching stance is not going to get their attention. It's useful, but asking a lot of powerful questions is sort of there's not a direct correlation to value for them. So that to me, that's low skin in the game, low partnering. So serving the team is sort of on the line, not bad. Self mastery is sin in the game, but not that visible to them. But where is the high value stances given my context? Over here, advising. Everyone with me? Advising. So for in this context, for me, I'm going to get more perceived value the more I advise, the more I lead, and the more I learn, but I really teach, but I'm thinking mentoring. So the more I mentor, advise, and lead in my context, those are high value. Agile lean practitioner, I have a I have a deep, broad knowledge base in Agile lean, but I don't know if that always gets their attention. Oh my God, we're going to pay him for his memorization of the Scrum Guide. I don't know if if that's a kicker for for clear value. With my constituencies that I typically coach, so it's sort of on the line. It's important, but it's probably not. It's using that in conjunction with advising and then using my transforming skills, my organizational development skills, my transforming, my scaling skills, my scaling experience there as well. Now, this is just for me. What I'm suggesting that all of you, you don't copy mine, you do this exercise for yourself. And then you ask yourself, am I am I surfacing in the right stances? What if I was leaning 90% of my time in coaching and the value proposition is right here. Everyone understand what I'm saying? If I spend too much time here, I mean, it may make me feel comfortable. People may love me actually, right? Oh, Bob, that was the best question. Let's write that down. That's the best question we've been asked in the last 30 days. But when push comes to shove, is it going to equate to business value? And my argument would be maybe not. Maybe yeah, so it's not that this is bad. I want to be leaning into the value stances. I want to be checking. Another thing to ask yourself is, do I have the skills to deliver the value? What if I'm underskilled? I need to be really developing those skills. Now, if I'm a Scrum Master, my map is going to be different. Everyone with me? If I'm a Scrum Master at Fidelity versus a Scrum Master at Apple, it's going to be different. It's a landscape. I need to evaluate. There's going to be similarities, but I want to look at the landscape. So my point is, I think this is a really good reflection tool for you to think about stances, comfort zones, skill sets, needs of your client, and where show me the money is. And the reason I'm being so value centric is because I hope no one argues with me. Now it's really tough economic times out there for agilists, for change agents, for scrum masters and coaches. And I want us to reevaluate where are we and do we need to start flexing in different directions? I think the answer is yes, actually, but you need to come to that conclusion yourself because it's context based. So you have those articles and that's it. Let me stop sharing and see if there's any questions or explorations we want to go through. How did I do on
Hey,
time?
thank you,
Not
Bob. I
bad.
think what we'll do is we'll encourage people to keep putting their questions in the chat. But we'll start with our first one on, do the colors on the graph that you last showed mean anything?
Not really. You can change them. Not to me. I don't think so. I think the answer is no.
Okay. And then do you have any advice on, so this comes from Alan, do you have any advice on re-establishing the beginning when the client doesn't want to re-begin?
Gosh, Alan, that's a tough question. I mean, maybe that's a case that we actually push, um, and maybe find a reason for confusion. Maybe I show vulnerability and say, you know what, I'm confused on the goals, Alan. Right? I thought I had clarity 3 months ago. So this is going to be a silly example, Alan, but I'm going to throw myself under the bus and say, you know what? I've gotten confused on the goals here. And can we reestablish goals and can we establish value proposition? Because I really care about delivering value and I'm checking with you. So I think however you finesse it, if there's directional, what I would call directional and value confusion, um, it's incumbent on us to try to reset that and to realign. And however you can do that. Another idea would be alcohol. So bourbon, scotch, whatever favorite, whatever. But joking aside, it's incredibly there's a tremendous amount of misalignment in agile contexts, at least in my view. We're not aligned on value, we're not aligned on objectives, we're not aligned on expectations. And so you set some of that in the beginning. If it gets misset, it's incredibly important to reset that. To try to encourage the client to do that.
So
Eh,
perhaps if you had maybe if you did a bi-monthly alignment check,
Yeah,
then if a really big misalignment is emerging, you already have a normal way of addressing it, and then it's less of a
absolutely.
catastrophic.
Yeah, kind of I mean, that's why feedback loops are so important,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Okay.
One of the things I suggested in the last session is not so data doesn't speak for itself, status reports doesn't speak for itself. So what I was suggesting is confirming your value on a periodic basis, which is essentially alignment. So
Hmm.
have a meeting with your stakeholder, whether they're busy or not, and talk about, are you delivering value? Are you meeting their expectations? And then drilling below that, if they say, oh, it's great, Alan Daly, you're the best thing since sliced bread. I don't know what we did before we brought you in as a coach. So I find that a lot of people communicate with glossy stuff or superficial stuff, and I want to dig deeper. That's
Hmm.
fantastic. I really appreciate that. But give me two areas where I can improve. Give me one mistake I made from a valuation perspective, right? And how do I readjust that to support, not to support me, to support you, my
Right.
stakeholder, and
Right.
things, and create the conversation. It's not an adversarial conversation. It's a I want to help you. I want to partner with you conversation. And if I'm off the rails even slightly, what can I do to get back on the rails?
Mm,
Great.
it's
Thank
really
you.
good. Yeah, thank you, Bob. That was really fantastic. This one actually um came from me. So the last
Wait, hold it. I think there's a rule
is there a
in
rule? I
in
was
in
wondering if I'm not breaking the
in the
rule.
bylaws of the group that says when no, go ahead, Jamie.
So the last graphic that you showed, um, and you had the cards. Could we do the cards change based on your role, or do we align our role to those cards are static?
So the competencies are static to the agile coaching growth wheel.
Okay, so if we were
All
doing
right.
this for a Scrum Master, we would find the Scrum Master competencies and put those in the bottom for.
No, I would say if you were doing it for I mean you could do that. You could do that. My view is coaching value, change agent value. So I could modify a scrum master to connect themselves to coaching competencies, right? Facilitation's there, lean scrum is there. My point would be just which ones are amplified for the scrum master role versus a coach role versus an enterprise coach role. But you could define your own, or you could overload those competencies and then shift them based on your role. So if I'm a scrum master, I would argue that facilitation is something I need to figure out how to show value facilitating. Does that make sense? I'm going to get facilitation opportunities. So what am I doing to grow that? and I need to even sell the value of that to stakeholders or something.
Okay. Yep.
So whereas for me at an enterprise level, wherever I put facilitation, that was based on that role.
Yep.
And the bit, not just the role in the company context, in the culture.
Yep. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, since I do have another question, but I'll wait. I'll give somebody, we'll make sure we, well, actually, I don't see any other
If there's
questions.
no
So
questions, then go for it.
I'll ask this one. So how do you ensure that the value you're delivering as an Agile coach is perceived correctly by different stakeholders? And what techniques do you use to align your internal purpose or your what did you say, ikigai? Is that how you say that?
Your ikigai.
Yeah, with their expectations. So you're aligning how do you get your purpose to align with their expectations?
Well, that's like a two-part question, and I think it's a really good question. Um, I think the first part I tried to answer with this discussion. I think we
Yeah,
have to talk to people. So don't send emails, don't send JIRA charts, don't show burn up and burn down, don't show flow data. I'm of the opinion that data doesn't speak for itself. Data is, and I said this in the last session, don't expect your boss to speak about your value or your colleague. So we have to promote ourselves. We have to get comfort in promoting and communicating our value with our stakeholders, asking them, soliciting that from them, pivoting when we need to, finding out what not our value, not in our terminology, but their terminology, and determining what they're expecting. So I firmly believe face-to-face communication is a big part of that. Aligning with their goals and objectives, aligning with their OKRs, et cetera, and asking, and then doing that repetitively. And also not just taking, we're aligned. I have this view that most leaders don't speak truth. There's a lot of leaders aren't telling you the total truth. A lot of leaders will blow smoke. Radical candor is not everyone is comfortable providing radical truth telling. It's not just a problem telling truth to power. It's also a problem with power speaking truth to other folks. And so things get obfuscated. So you have to work incredibly hard to gain their trust, to not get defensive, to listen, to actively listen, and to really create a conversation where you're starting to understand what they're asking you for and even what they're not asking you for. Right. Oh, you're not asking me for that. Is that not important? Oh, it's important. I just thought you knew that that was inherent. I didn't realize that that was an inherent value to create these relationship-based discussions. Now, that being said, now we're being driven, our purpose is being driven by the business. So a lot of coaches go into an organization, and now I'm getting to Jamie's second part. I think what it was I see a lot of perky agilists. They come out of a Scrum Master class, or they come out of a coaching class and they're like, oh my God, changing the world of work, right? And Agile, and they bring all of this youthful enthusiasm into the organization. And all of the objectives are around Agile. Everyone with me? Or team. And they're not looking at the world through the eyes of their stakeholders. And if we start communicating the way I talked about, sometimes you're going to say, well, that's not what I signed up for, right? I don't know if I signed up to squeeze more juice out of the lemons, right? What's up with that? And now how do I navigate that? Uh, so I think that's one of the reasons that Ikigai is important. And I think you need to go back to your Ikigai and maybe you need to make some adjustments in it. So for example, if you need the money, maybe you need to lower your Agile aspirations. I can't believe I'm saying this to a large crowd. This is going to come back to haunt me. But I know I can feel it. I can feel it. It's going to haunt me. But you may have to lower some of your Agile aspirations and align better with what they're asking you to do.
Yeah.
So that you're meeting them where they are rather than meeting them where you want them to be from a stakeholder perspective. Now there is going to be a line. Sometimes there's a line where you're like, I am not comfortable with that, right? That pushes me out of my purpose. And then you have some hard decision making to do. I've left roles. I've walked when I've been pushed like that as an employee and as an outside consultant. Uh, but I'm suggesting that renavigation. I don't think a lot of coaches and scrum masters do that. They're I'm going to use the term purist. They're too purist in their thinking, and they don't make those sort of those adjustments, and they feel bad about it. And I'm like, no, I mean, don't. There's lines, there's principles that you don't want to cross, but it is a job. It is. I mean, You're there for a business purpose, not just an agile purpose. So there's some negotiation there, and I think the ikigai, the work you did on the canvas, and the ikigai and value can help you balance that.
I like that. Thank you.
Oh, the other thing with that, those agilists feel really sad, Jamie. Right? No, they feel sad. They're like, oh, no, it breaks my heart. I'm like, if you stretch a little bit, I mean, give yourself credit. It's okay to serve the business. Everyone say that. It's okay to manage a project, right? Some of you scrum it. Oh my God, you can't use the P word. You can't use the R word. You can't. Oh, we can't. I don't know if the world is so stark, right? If it has to be so stark in our execution. So give yourself a break. Give yourself some grace.
I love that. Yeah, I know a lot of folks who are going through something similar. Yeah, it's really important to hear from a thought leader that it's okay to do some of these things that aren't exactly, laid out a certain way in the Scrum guide or Scrum theory or Agile theory. We do have a business to support, so
We have stakeholders, and if you cut them, do they not bleed? They're, let's call them. They're leaders. They're stakeholders. They're humans. They are fellow human beings on the planet Earth. So they're not some alien that's driving some other objective. So again, that's where partnership can be so important. All right, next question.
let's see. How do you get your client to value the coaching aspect of a Scrum Master, push or pull?
So I would say be specific about coach as. Remember Agile Coaching Growth Wheel? And I would be more specific and more focused than, oh, I'm an Agile coach or I'm a Scrum Master coach. I would say let's use the term coach. I'm a coach as, and I'm coaching as, so what hat do I have on? So let's say facilitation. So I'm a coach, I'm Scrum Master coach, and I put on the hat of facilitation occasionally. So that's a competency that I wear. So how am I using that in serving my team to deliver business value? Right. And I can show transparency to my stakeholders, and they can have some ahas if they're in the audiences or whatever. They're like, oh my God, they made a decision. Bob Galen influenced the Scrum team to actually make a sticky decision in 5 minutes. What the hell happened? Right. So there were some facilitation skills, and they can see value if they're observing that. Now let's flip it. The other thing I can do is volunteer. As a Scrum Master, I could volunteer to facilitate a leadership value stream mapping exercise. Everyone with me? Now this scares me a little bit because now I'm going to be facilitating a bunch of stakeholders. But the good news is I'm getting transparency across a broad set. And if I get the balancing act right, I'm going to generate some inherent value, some visibility, transparency, impact, value. What I'm saying is maybe take that view towards all of the competencies. What can I do to make a whatever my client assignment, but what can I do to have more broad visibility or broader impact in the organization? All of you can have broader impact. You don't want to be in a silo. You want to have broad opinions. And yes, there's risk taking, etc. I would suggest that you pick the competencies where you have the strongest skills to start with, but they have to matter to the organization. Does that make sense to everyone? Right? It has to matter somewhat to the organization, but find those opportunities. Everyone, I want you to also write down, show off your chops. Everyone, write it down now. Show off your chops. Continuously show off your chops. Develop your chops, right? Mature your chops. Show off. Get out there, right? And translate your chops to the value that they bring to the organization. Notice I didn't talk about agile gobbledygook. Your chops, things that you can do uniquely that impact the business goals and objectives. Find those opportunities. I saw that Alan had his hand up earlier. I don't know if we did you want to come off mute, Alan, and ask me directly?
So I was just going to comment that I think sometimes, I know for me, when I was early in my Scrum Mastering coaching career, we get caught up in the idealism that's out on the internet, right? That, thou shalt not equate story points to hours. Well, that's terrible. Blah, 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 like that. And we take that idealism into the workplace and think it's okay to draw a line in the sand and make sure you never cross it.
Yeah,
And in reality, that's a way to decrease your value to the organization.
absolutely.
So yes, keep idealism in mind, but you have to maybe go increments toward that, or it might not be a good battle to fight today. And so I just wanted to comment that.
Thank you. You said it much more articulately than I did, but absolutely. Anyone else? Any other questions?
I don't have any questions, but I feel like I've just been to group therapy and it's really awesome.
I don't know, but I really appreciate the comment. I don't know if I appreciate being likened to a therapist, but
No.
Maybe we're all therapists.
Yes, you are.
I'm kidding around.
You're
I'm
an
kidding around.
agile therapist.
I in some quarters that wouldn't be a good thing.
I know,
So
that's true.
so I'm going to get it. Ryan Ripley's going to ring me up and he's
Oh, no.
he's going to therapist the therapist or something like that. I'm just kidding. Kadon, you have your hand up?
Yeah, you had it right, Kadan. Good
Kadon?
afternoon, everyone. I have a quick question. You mentioned about showing off your chops, and really kind of putting yourself out there, right? How do you navigate that when you basically you find a company who has a certain expectation, right? Say they want a Scrum Master, right? And they learn midway in an interview that they don't just want a Scrum Master, they want an RTE, right? How do you navigate that, right? Because I see that a lot of companies, they write job descriptions that are clear or to the point, but then when you get to talking to a recruiter, you learn more, and then you see there's a lot more complexities to what you are applying for than what you initially was told.
I look at it as a good thing. As long as I have the skills or the chops for most of that wish list, Kadon, I will apply. I'm like, this is to me where that purist thinking can sometimes get, oh, that's not a Scrum Master. I see posts on LinkedIn a lot and they do job descriptions and they poke holes. Well, why, it's a release director, it's a release engineer. That's not a Scrum Master. And I get, if you don't have the skills, so take jobs where you have the skills, but don't get stuck on the skills. To me, that's part of meeting them where they are. Right? Meet them as if they call me a release trained dog manager, that's fine. I can be a release trained dog manager as long as I have the chops. Then I can go in there and I have the opportunity to change that organization from the inside out. Right? I can show them what good agile looks like, but I need to have an incremental view, not a big, right? But I personally look at those as opportunistic. Now, some people look at that and they take the job when they have very little chops. That's not a recipe for success. But if you think that you have most of the chops, but they're outside the bounds of what you think agile is or Scrum Master is or coach is, my inclination is to take it and to become an inside out disruptor. But that's not for everyone. That's not for everyone. So.
Yeah, and thank you so much for that. One last point, because I also struggle with this too, being that I've experienced it. Like I have more of an perspective of how do I add value to the company as opposed to what label should be attached to me. So I don't see it as a Scrum Master, project manager, or program manager. I see it more as how do I add value? How do I think entrepreneurially about the business, right? And I find that when I go into interviews and I explain to them, hey, you know, I do have the credentials you want, but my perspective is a little bit more distilled down to how do I entrepreneurially bring value to your business. Unfortunately, more times than I like to count, it's seen as a detractor as opposed to a positive.
I think well, so you have to sense the interview. You have to sense what they're asking for and then what their culture is like. And then I think my suggestion would be you have to sense how much of yourself to bring in. Like how much of that entrepreneurial disruptive spirit do you want to expose in the interview versus how much of it do you want to bring when you start working? If I bring I'll do it. If I give everyone a full Bob Galen in the interview, I don't know how many jobs. I mean, I don't know how many people on the planet Earth can handle a full Bob Galen, right? It's a little scary. So I have to moderate it, and I'm not sort of disguising it. I have to moderate, and when I get into the organization, I have to figure out what the culture will receive as well. If you know what I mean. There's sort of this map. Again, I think the term I want to leave you with, Kadan, is meet them where they are.
Okay.
But the other thing I want to leave everyone with is roles are becoming, and you probably read this in some Agile Alliance stuff, roles are not the point anymore. Skills, chops are becoming the differentiators. And I would also say attitude, like being more of a generalist than being a specialist is becoming what the competitive landscape is looking for. But there's a lot of sensing and responding you have to do. That's that listening. Remember I talked about active listening earlier? I think so in the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel, that's in self-mastery. That's in the hub of the wheel. And that's a skill that you all want to be working on. Am I sensing the landscape? I think of sense and respond. Am I listening effectively? And not only what they're saying, but what are they saying and what are they not saying? And what are they partially saying? And what do I see on the walls? And then we're making better decisions about knowing, how to partner, how to participate, what spaces will meet our expectations or not.
Awesome. So I think we just have a few minutes left, so maybe we'll just take one more here. What are your thoughts about Scrum Masters adding, the project manager hat, and how do you balance both hats? And
Do it. Gosh, I think I didn't say it so clearly. Stop whining about titles. Can you be a project manager? Can you do that? So 5 years ago, I would not have said that. I was a purist. Alan Daly knew me. At one point, I was this pointy-headed purist, and I would have probably said something totally different. But I'm changing my mind based on reflection, and I'm thinking meet them where they are. If let's say, who can I pick on? I need to pick Katrina. Katrina has 10 years of project management experience at a variety of companies, and she rocked it out of the park. And now she took a CSM class, and she's now a Scrum Master, looking for Scrum Master roles, and she can't even talk about those 10 years anymore, right? She can't talk about the skills, the successes, or any. Oh, no. That's waterfall. And I would say, no, weave those skills, not the job, weave those skills into your stories. Weave those skills, weave your evolution in there. And don't thumb your nose at, oh, it's a project manager, it's beneath me, or it's a side, or it's not. I don't know if that's the case anymore. And I'm not just saying that because of the economics, right? We can't. So the landscape out there, everyone is pretty rocky. Everyone with me? You're not. How many people are going to get a perfect landscape, this agile, heavenly nirvana scape where everyone is agile? I mean, I've not seen any of those. So agile contexts are sort of hairy and gnarly. Now we need bold, courageous people to go in there and disrupt from the inside. I still believe that. So I believe there's a place for chops and skills and constructive disruption, healthy, respectful disruption.
Yep.
Well
And
said,
that is
Bob.
oh, go ahead. We just
Yeah.
have a few seconds left here, Katriana.
That's correct. Just well said, Bob. I think that we have to think about everything that we bring to the table.
Every everything. Everything. You worked in a church, bring it. I don't know. You did. I mowed lawns when I was a kid. If there's some connection, bring it. It might not resonate with everybody. I've used lawn mowing I grew up on a farm. Do you all know that I've used milking cows occasionally as stories to get me work in Agile context? Not often, but so bring every bit of yourself.
Great
In
resource.
moderation. You don't want to scare people away, but in moderation.
That is a great note to end on. We are at the hour, and I think I could ask Bob questions all day long. And I still don't think he would get worn out by that either. I think he'd have all this energy.
I am an introvert though, Jamie. So eventually I would like take a nap.
You'd
So
be like,
but
go home.
but I'm okay.
Well,
But thank you,
Bob,
everyone.
again. We will set up another AMA sometime, Bob, if you're agreeable, and we'll get it on the calendar and have one just asking questions. So look out for that in the coming days. We'll see when Bob has some time, and we'll get that going.
Thank you.
That said, thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.
Tatiana,
Thank you.
Bob, thank you so much, both of you.
Oh, you're
Tatiana,
welcome.
for
Thank
staying
you all. Bye-bye.
Yep, appreciate it. All right, I'm going to end this session. Thanks, everyone.